Hello, everybody, and welcome to the This Is Me, I guess, podcast starring me. Listen, I wanted to start episode 2 off on a very positive note, but I went to check my notes to do this episode, and my Microsoft Word completely kicked me out. So I can't edit the document that has all of my ideas, all of my thoughts, and like what the heck I was going to do for this episode. So, talk about a little stressed, a little frustrated, but we're going to start this off with a bang. Fit. And I not only had the issue with Word, but then I decided to restart it because I figured, oh, if I restart my computer, then maybe it'll fix it. I don't know. And then it just decided that it was January of like 1982 at like 10 p.m. That is not obviously when I'm recording this. So I don't know what's wrong. I don't know what happened. That's cool. That's okay. We run into technical difficulties sometimes, but it's very inconvenient. Since everything's not working, we're just going to do something on the fly. I waited a little bit and it's still being a little bit of a pain. So I will go ahead and tell you guys about what I like to call my second job. I am a romance author. I have written, I believe, 8 books, and I will give you a little rundown of my writing career so far. I am very cautious when I share my writing story because everyone's is different and everyone has different levels of experience. There are some authors that have some amazing podcasts on here, and they are 10 out of 10 amazing and know everything that they're talking about. And then there's people like me, or I can't even say there are people like me. I am one of a kind. But I have kind of done everything on my own and in my own way. So I'm not 100% like any other self published author. So it definitely will make talking about this kind of interesting. I have known that I wanted to be an author since I was 9 years old. I remember how old I was only because it was when Big Time Rush came on TV for the first time, and around that time I remember really getting into writing and kind of exploring my options when it came to writing. You don't realize that there are different forms of writing, especially as a teenager. So, my first real memory of writing was writing fan fiction. So, I actually started on Wattpad in 2013. I wrote on my friend's iPod Touch during study hall at school, and my parents didn't even know I had an account. I wrote on there for a few years, but my mom was very fast to find me. I still don't know how she found me. I would love to ask her someday, but she found me and I wrote a very not so clean story about Kendall Schmidt from Big Time Rush, and it grew in popularity. I was very proud of myself, but my mom found it, and she was so perturbed that her 13-year-old little child wrote this dirty story, but I remember her telling me she was more concerned with the fact that it was accurate and actually a really good story. She did tell me to take the story down, and I did. So I continued to write on there, but I wrote clean stories, and my mom would get on and read them, kind of monitoring me. But I decided to continue writing, obviously, but I wrote on a computer that my dad ended up getting me. So I continued writing on Wattpad for several years. I developed from writing about Big Time Rush to writing about the BBC series Sherlock TV show. And I wrote 2 stories, one before another, so like a 2 book series. And then I wrote what I just called, I believe I called it Sentiment. I cannot remember, but that was my most popular story that I wrote on Wattpad, and it was literally taking the events of the show and adding a female character. It still gets reads to this day. I don't know how. I get notifications every now and then, but I don't get on very often. Sometimes I'll get on just for memory reasons and just remembering how I started on Wattpad and now I'm here, or at least in my mind now I'm here. I mean, I've made so much progress and I'm very happy about that. So, as I said, started writing that way. And then when I was a senior in high school, I had to start thinking about college. I was terrified, as any teenager is, when they're like, okay, time to decide what you want to do for the rest of your life. You got that figured out? I absolutely did not. So I wanted to go into marketing because I thought that would be fun. I didn't really know what I wanted to do, and I kind of went off of my mom, who was taking college classes at the time that I was getting ready to start, and she needed some help with like some computer stuff because she did classes at home and she couldn't figure out how to do some things. So I sat with her when she was doing her marketing course and she would show me what she had to do. And I kind of flipped through the book a little bit and I was like, oh, this can kind of be fun. I can't remember what the project was that she was doing, but she was explaining it to me and I thought it was really cool. So I set up for marketing and then the school got a hold of us and said, hey, you also have a scholarship. And the scholarship was about half my yearly tuition. And I looked at my mom and I was like, wow, holy crap. And so we considered communications because I was in a broadcasting class in high school and I really loved doing that. And then I found out I got two other scholarships and I was writing more and more. And I showed my mom like a really rough draft. It was a binder, but we had made a cover for the book. The book was thick. I was so proud of it. And she was like, you know what? Do you actually want to go into communications? And I didn't know. That was such a big question to ask a 17-year-old, 16-year-old, 17, whatever, 16, 17-year-old. From there, I had to really think about it. I was like, is this what I want to do? Will I even be able to get a job? All those concerns, right? Swirling in my head. But my mom was like, let's focus on now. What will make you happy going into college? Studying something that you're not sure you like or studying something that you know you'll like? So in a way it sounded like my mom totally like convinced me, but I thought about it and I realized if I am going to school for 4 full years, I should probably go to school for something I enjoy. I did end up changing my major to English and I had done some college credit classes, so I had a whole semester knocked off of my college experience. I published my first book, Love and Lies, in 2019. I published it on Valentine's Day, and it at the time felt like the biggest accomplishment in the world. I used a picture of one of my best friends, Cora, who I met at a Heffron Drive concert, and I had friends that were willing to read my books. It was really awesome. And then I decided, maybe not even a year later, roughly a year later, that I wanted to write a book series based on all 50 states and then some special locations of like places that I had always dreamt of going or something along those lines. And I did Summer Love Wilmington. It came out, everyone really liked that one. They said they could see my growth, and that made me feel pretty good, knowing that other people were like, "Wow, okay, you're doing this." Like and it's good. So everyone, reading kind of started to give me that little bit of, I don't want to say hope, but the little bit of confidence that I needed. I just pulled up my website because I couldn't remember. I actually published that the same year. So I published Love and Lies on February 14th, 2019, and then Summer Love Wilmington was on November 15th of 2019. That is crazy. Doesn't feel like that, but okay. And then after Summer Love Wilmington, I definitely took a little bit of a break. I didn't publish a book for over a year, and I published the sequel to Love and Lies, which was Intimate. And Love and Lies is my baby. I am embarrassed by it, but it was a book that I used some real life inspiration to write. I included bullying in the book for a reason. I was bullied growing up and just picked on for my appearance. Guys calling me fat, things along those lines. I wanted to write it based on things that had happened to me or that have been said about me. And then when I wrote Intimate, which was the sequel, I really wanted to capture two different characters who are, genuinely in love with each other, but in two different places in their lives. So Noah, who is Arya's love interest in Love and Lies, Noah goes off to college and Arya is stuck at home. Being teenagers, it's so funny because there will be people who marry their high school sweethearts, and I'm so happy for anybody who does. But at the same time, I think don't you feel like you're missing out? And that's what I tried to capture with Arya and Noah in that book was, are you gonna stay with a guy that you're technically not even with right now, in person, and risk missing out on some high school experiences? And doesn't mean you have to have a boyfriend to do any of that, obviously, but just in that situation and in that book, that's kind of what I tried to envision there. My next book that's on my website is called You're It, and it says I published it in July of 2021. However, I believe I had written it around 2019, 2020. It was originally a Dean Winchester fan fiction about a waitress and how she works along this like interstate highway in a diner, and this guy keeps coming in every couple weeks and then eventually daily, and he kind of stalks her at first. Like, it was kind of my attempt at doing a little bit of a darker romance. Let me just tell you, it was rough, mind you. That's not really my genre, but I wanted to give like more of a thrillery dark romance vibe, and I tried. I wasn't proud of it, so it is only $5 and it's an ebook on Kindle exclusively. I had originally published it in my university's newspaper. They kind of did like a column for creatives, and I would release like little chapter by chapter segments into the paper. So that was really cool. I wish the website was still up and running. It looks like the school like stopped doing the paper or something. I don't know what happened. So it's gone, unfortunately. I think I might have some screenshots on an old phone maybe, but yeah, I kind of unfortunately don't have that anymore, and that was a really cool memory. I have emails. I do want to apologize if you're hearing any kind of crackling or dogs barking. For some reason, the headphones I am wearing have an attitude tonight and they want to be heard. And the dogs are having so much fun chasing the crap out of each other. They're relatively quiet, so I don't think you'll hear them, but they might have picked up a little bit. But anyhow, back to the show. I only have, I believe, three more books. Four more books. Apparently, Laura wrote a lot more than she thought. So, the next book I released, which was my favorite release by far, is Summer Love New York City. I released that on December 2nd of 2022. Summer Love New York City is my baby. I say that Love and Lies is, but Summer Love New York City was a turning point in my career. And I say my career because I genuinely was not bringing in money as often until I released this book. The inspiration behind the book is completely different than I think what some people online think it is. Somebody had read the book and said that the character of Sebastian Barlow reminded them heavily of Sebastian Stan. And it was funny because I was becoming a Sebastian Stan fan around this time. So I think it was how do I say this? I think it was an unaccidental naming of a character. But I also used Sebastian as a Little Mermaid tie-in because Jane is a huge Disney fan. So, in case you don't know what Summer Love New York City is about, I'm acting like you might, but you probably have no idea what it's about or who I am, and you're just listening to this for funsies. So, Summer Love New York City is about a recent NYU graduate named Jane Elizabeth who is in love with her best friend and also her roommate named Spencer, who is also a musician. The only thing that is keeping them apart is their other roommate and Spencer's ex-girlfriend and Jane's friend, Katie. So there's a whole complicated triangle thing going on there. Jane is also a self-published romance author, and she's just not too sure how to kind of dip into the dating pool. She has a lot of anxiety, a lot of uncertainty about what she wants. And that is until she meets a mysterious man in sunglasses who has made it clear that he is actually very interested in her. So I leave it off with just asking, does the mystery man make things better or worse for Jean and her friends? And that's for you to find out when you read the book. But obviously, the mystery man is my character, Sebastian Barlow, who is an up and coming actor. So he is just starting out as well. He's in a popular franchise, but he's just kind of on the outskirts and hasn't done a lot of other projects. So that book, when I wrote it and I started promoting it, it was around the time that I got on TikTok, and the amount of people who were like, "Oh, this sounds really good. Oh, this sounds interesting." And then they swarmed that book, and it was eye-opening for me. First of all, the power of TikTok, and secondly, the amount of people who love reading romance. And hence, book talk has become a huge thing. And I would love to talk more about that in another episode. But it was just really crazy to see people saying that my book was good. And it was people I've never met before. Before that point, I had always had friends, family, friends of friends read my books. But it got to the point where I sold a book in Spain or in Amsterdam, and like I couldn't believe it. I was so excited and honored that anyone would bother to look at my book. I mean, it felt crazy. So then immediately after I released Summer Love New York City, 8 days later, I released The Promotion Dilemma. And I did that because at the time I was unemployed. I was between jobs. I had left a very toxic environment and was searching for something that was not going to be toxic. And the Promotion Dilemma was actually a senior project that I had written in college. And again, I was short on money, and I thought, you know what, I wrote this, it's good. It's kind of an ode to an office romance, which who doesn't love a good forbidden office romance? I just kind of published it. I say it so casually, but it was not as hard of a decision as I thought it would be. I was really proud of it. There are things in it that you can tell I wrote it pre Summer Love New York City, and that's something else with my books that I tell people that I'm so excited about is you can see my growth through every single book. So I've really enjoyed that and hearing people say, oh my gosh, you're getting better and better with each book that you're putting out. So I had left a toxic job, right? I ended up taking a break from writing in 2023. Now, I'm not going to say I took a break from writing as like I wasn't writing. I was writing. Trust me. But I couldn't find the right book. So I had tried some other things in 2023. I was having a rough time with my mental health and kind of trying to get back on track after leaving the toxic environment and still starting this new job with the fear of it starting over again. I was scared I was going to start this new job and that I was going to get treated the exact same way that I had gotten treated before. And every day going in there, I was very tense, I was very anxious, and I was very scared. I was scared that I was the reason that everything happened at my last job and I blamed myself. And it was very hard for me, and luckily I got to start a job somewhere with a boss who heard me and listened to me, and when I told her how scared I was, she really took that into consideration and was very open with me. And again, I appreciate her so much, and I'm so thankful that she worked with me and is working with me. I can't say I'm perfect, so I'm not going to get all sappy about that. But anyhow, took a break from writing, and around, I want to say August of 2023, I figured out that I wanted to continue with Jane and Sebastian's story, which put a huge cramp in some plans. So I told you guys about Summer Love Wilmington. And you might have noticed that Summer Love Wilmington and Summer Love New York City have the same beginning part of the title. That was because they were going to be a part of the 50 states, right? Well, unfortunately, I decided to cancel and scrap the idea of doing all 50 states. It seemed like a huge commitment. I had a hard time forcing myself to write things that I didn't want to. So I was working on a Summer Love Tennessee, and it was like a ranch hand and all this other stuff. And I'm not going to say it's not a good book. I'm not going to say it's not a good idea, but I felt like I was forcing myself to write it. I also was limiting myself to only a summer romance. And a lot of people don't like insta love, where a summer love romance you're going to probably fall in love within 4 to 8 weeks. There was something about Jane and Sebastian that would not let go of me. I put a lot of myself into Jane, and I wrote Sebastian as a guy that I would be interested in. I I didn't want to give up on them. I managed to make a very scandalous and juicy, smutty sequel. And then I angered my mother by ending it on a cliffhanger. So I look forward to hopefully picking up those characters again soon. I haven't decided yet, how I'm going to return to them. But again, I'll save that for another conversation another time, because I have one final book to say how proud I am of. And that book is Sugar and Spice, which I released on September 28th of 2024. Sugar and Spice was the first book that I plotted and outlined and really took my time with, in the sense of knowing what I wanted from beginning, middle, and end. I am a weird writer. I don't plan anything. I don't do character bios. I don't do world building or anything like that. I pick two names of two characters. I pick what they kind of look like, and I go for it. And I'm sure you can kind of tell that in a lot of my books. Hence why Sugar and Spice became everyone's favorite. I think the dedication to this story really shows. And they're all loving characters. And according to my mother, there is more story than spice in this one, but it is still spicy. I love that comment. But Sugar and Spice is about a single mother who owns a bakery and has only one life goal, which is to raise her daughter and raise her right. As she's working on running her bakery and raising a 3-year-old daughter, it gave her little time for romance. But then there's Jacob, and Jacob had one goal, which was to survive his best friend Allie's wedding. So when Allie decides to stop in Ginger's bakery, Jacob's with her and he meets Ginger. And both of them are not sure if they want to jump back into dating, but they give it a shot anyhow. And that is all I can tell you. I mean, it's a feel good, cute story. It's on the shorter end, so it makes for a nice, like, afternoon read. I'm over here promoting my book. I'm so sorry. But I wanted to share that with you guys because this writing is a huge part of who I am. And I am always looking for new ideas. I am always starting new books when I should be writing another one. I'm guilty of that. On this podcast, I said I would be very transparent with you guys and talk about, life experiences. A huge part of my life is writing and my books, and I am so thankful to every single person who has taken the time to read them. I have had the opportunity to meet and speak with some of the best people ever from going to book events. I did Romance Con in Toledo, Ohio last November, and it was a really great experience. I got to meet some new authors. I was able to kind of see how everyone else does their thing. It is amazing how different everyone is, and that we all write romance, but there are so many different types of romance, and the diversity was incredible. And I hope to come back. I think they plan on doing one in 2025, and I do hope to go because I had a blast. I encourage anyone in the Toledo, Ohio area to definitely look into it, especially if you're a huge romance lover. Thank you guys for listening to me go through all of the books that I've written. I am very proud of all of them. Maybe some of them sound like they're up your alley. If they are, you can hop onto my website, which is larajadeauthor.com. I will share that I am currently working on 2 projects, potentially 3. it is very difficult to create a writing routine. I usually try to write every day at work during my lunch breaks. That seems to be the only time that I can think coherently, and I'm sitting at a desk, so I'm kind of forcing myself to focus on my laptop. I started writing in a notebook again recently to limit distractions. I am very easily distracted, and if I write on a laptop for some reason, that mentally makes me think that I can get on my phone at the same time. So I'll end up writing like a paragraph and then get on my phone and then check every single social media app before inevitably ending up on TikTok and doom scrolling. I'm trying to limit the distractions by writing in a notebook again and using my headphones. So I'm trying to have, I don't want to say a focused aura, but I'm trying to really hone in on what I'm working on. It does work, but one of my biggest peeves as a writer is writing something in a notebook and then having to retype it in my computer, which is silly, I know, but I hate typing from a notebook. It stresses me out. And I think it's just because I like to do everything very quickly especially when it comes to writing or working on something. So my brain moves quicker than I'm typing, so I make more errors. And not only that, I'm reading it the first time I put it on the paper, and then I'm reading it again to put it in the computer. And then I have to go back through and do edits. So to me, it's a whole other round of reading my stuff, and I get so sick of my writing so quickly. But that's just something as an author that you do. You look at it all the time and you're looking at it from a critical viewpoint, and then eventually you come back and want to appreciate it like a reader. And that's actually what I did with Summer Love New York City. I rewrote and wrote and wrote and wrote like crazy. And then I can actually still pick that one up and reread it. But I am thankful for the experience writing it and the amazing characters that I created and the just connections it has made with other people. And I could talk about that for hours. So I'm going to stop myself before I get on that tangent again. I would like to thank you guys for taking the time to listen to this episode. It was a lot of talk about my books. I am super thankful to have the opportunity to have a platform where I can speak about my books, and whether that be through a podcast or on my social media, it still is a really good feeling to be able to say, hey, I wrote these and people kind of like them sometimes. If you are interested in checking out my books, I have a website. It is laurajadeauthor.com. Or you can follow me on Instagram at laurajadeauthor, as well as TikTok and Facebook. The podcast officially has an Instagram. It is the TIMIG, this is me, I guess, pod on Instagram. Yeah, you can find me at all those locations, and I hope to see you there. Please don't forget to rate the episode, like the episode, follow, all that fun stuff. Subscribe if you're listening to this on YouTube. Thank you for hanging out. I can't wait to talk to you next time. Be safe. That is all.